It pains me to say it, but the Saints actually did a competent move today, which we're going to talk about, but we are trailing them in subscribers. Let's get ourselves to 33K, and then we're going to go full Ricky Bobby mode, slingshot engage this offseason to pass Saints now in subs. We've talked about Myles Garrett. We've talked about Micah Parsons and Max Crosby. Now it is time to talk about the man that led the NFL in sacks, believe it or not, Bengals defensive end Trey Hendrickson. Let's break down the possibility of Atlanta trading for the 2024 runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year, the NFL sack leader with 17.5. If you remember, we talked about him, 9 months ago or so when Hendrickson requested a trade from the Bengals. He was looking for a new contract. Bengals are historically cheap and poor, and they weren't going to give him a new contract, so he decided, all right, I guess I'll just play anyway. But now he enters the last year of his deal, and I could see a team making a call for the Bengals who have to pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and going, all right, we'll move on from Hendrickson, who comes off back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons. Season prior to that, 8 sacks, and these are all with the Cincinnati Bengals, where when he started his career off with the Saints, didn't have much of a role early on in his career. Then he had a breakout year and a contract season. Bengals paid him, and he has quietly been one of the best pass rushers in football. He just doesn't quite get the recognition compared to a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt, but he's not very far behind. Since he went to Cincinnati, he is third in sacks dating back to 2021 with 57. He's top 10 in tackles for loss, QB hits, and pressures, and he's tied for second in forced fumbles. If you did a blind resume, you'd think this is Max Crosby or Micah Parsons. Oh no, it's Trey Hendrickson. So when it comes to insert pass rusher, my answer is always yes. You're going to have a tough time finding a pass rusher that I don't want the Atlanta Falcons to pursue. They are just that desperate for one, and they have historically failed at drafting and developing them that I don't care if they have to overpay for an older player. I'm in. They desperately need help on their front 4, front 5, front 7 to get to the quarterback. If you want one takeaway from the Super Bowl, it is the Eagles won that game because of their front 4. There are a lot of great paths and blueprints to getting to the Super Bowl, but for the Eagles, it was rooted in the front 4. Now, you may not have a front 4 as dominant as Philly's, but don't be so far behind that when the Super Bowl rolls around, you don't generate a single pressure and the opposing quarterback just dices your secondary up. So Hendrickson, Parsons, anyone for that matter, bring him on down. Because sad Falcon stat here, I was curious about this. Since 2000, only one player with the Atlanta Falcons has had 50 or more sacks in their Falcons career. It's, of course, trivia. Anyone want to guess? 3, 2, 1. John Abraham. Since 2021, Hendrickson, in a 4-year span, has 57. I don't think I'm delivering any brand new information, but I do think we need to just remind ourselves periodically they are so bad. And I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but someone's got to say it. At finding and drafting and developing and coaching up pass rushers, that if there is a proven guy out there who might be a little expensive, might cost you something in a trade, I'm willing to roll the dice on it. If it doesn't work, so be it. But at least you tried. So this is the trade idea I came up with. The Bengals get a future third. Atlanta does not have their third-round draft pick for this year. That belongs to New England for the Matthew Judon trade, which, listen, looking back, I think the Falcons would rather have the third than Matthew Judon, but I can't blame them. At least they tried. And I'm willing to roll the dice on this one again. I think we could agree Hendrickson's a little bit above Judon, too, as well. But, yeah, since he nets a future third for a guy in a contract season who's turning 32 years old by the end of the 2025 season, that might be a win-win for both situations here. When it comes to the money side of things, he's entering the final year of his deal, like I mentioned. Atlanta would have to have $16 million in cap space for him, which at the moment they don't have. But don't look at the current cap number and think, well, that's it. That's the final number. No, it's very easy to make some moves, whether it's cuts, whether it's trading Kyle Pitts away. You trade Kyle Pitts away, you open up nearly $11 million in cap space. Boom. There's your money for Trey Hendrickson. Or you could just restructure a couple of contracts, which is not a victimless crime, because if you push a player's money down the road into the future and you want to move on from that player before their contract is up, you are hit with a massive dead cap hit. So there are some pros and cons to restructuring contracts, and you don't want to do it just willy-nilly. But you can get to a point financially where you can afford Hendrickson. Don't let people tell you, no, he's too expensive. No, he's not. So would you do this trade? Give me a yes or give me a no. You're Terry Fontenot. I got a chair. You're in the GM chair. Are you making this move if the Bengals call and say we'll take a third next year for Hendrickson, for the reigning NFL sack leader? I am saying yes so quickly they don't have a chance to rethink it. We have more to get to on today's episode, but it is brought to you by our friends over at Factor. Today's show is brought to you by Factor, and they are an excellent way to optimize your nutrition. Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They are dietitian approved and ready to eat and heat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel up and feel great no matter what. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. I'm trying to lose some weight before my big day at the end of May, and Factor is an excellent way to shed some lbs. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/FalconsChat50off and use code FalconsChat50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FalconsChat50off at factormeals.com/FalconsChat50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. We opened up the video by saying the Saints made a competent move, and this is it. They hired Kellen Moore. For a little while there, it was looking dicey in New Orleans because they had their top 2 guys taken away from them. They wanted Aaron Glenn. He goes to the Jets. They never really thought they had a chance at Ben Johnson, but maybe Mike McCarthy. No, they bring Big Fat Mike in, and they don't see eye to eye on just the organization, the structure, and the way of doing things. So McCarthy decides, I'll take a year off coaching. I expect him to get a head coaching gig in 2026. So now you're down your top 2 candidates, and you're the last team to make a hire, and you're putting all your eggs in the Kellen Moore basket, the Eagles' offensive coordinator. And if for whatever reason he has a change of heart or change of mind in New Orleans, you look around, you're very late in the game. Not just in finding a quality head coach, but also for building a staff around this head coach. That's such an important part of a new head coach's success, surrounding them with successful aides. And if you're the last person to get hired, all the good coordinators, they're gone. I could bring back Dennis Allen, but like Dennis Allen went with Ben Johnson to Chicago. There's plenty of good former head coaches that were hired away to other teams to be their new OC or DC. So now you're putting together a staff of just friends and buddies that probably aren't qualified for that gig, but you don't have another option, so you might as well hire someone you trust. So unfortunately, I do believe this is a good move for the Saints. I like Kellen Moore as a coordinator. Kind of got ran out of Dallas when it really wasn't his fault, and that's kind of shown since the years he's left. Goes to the Chargers and is a victim of just being, a Brandon Staley associate who just didn't have it in him to be an NFL head coach. And then he goes to Philadelphia, and, well, the rest is history. I want to switch gears and talk about some mock drafts that came out. Specifically this one from Warren Sharp's overarching umbrella. And in this mock draft, I was blown away to see who the Falcons took in the bottom left. It is Mizzou wide receiver Luther Burden III. Let's get to know Luther Burden just for a moment here. He is a speedster, yards after catch type of guy. He uses his great athleticism to his advantage. He is not some red zone deep ball threat that you just throw it up to and he wins the 50-50. No, maybe a little bit more like Darnell Mooney, but I think he's probably going to be a better yards after catch, although I still like Mooney a lot even in that role. If the Falcons, though, go wide receiver at 15, I might delete the channel. Sorry. I have to protest. If they, for another year, think, you know what we need? Another first-round pick on offense. Channel's gone. You guys can go somewhere else. I'm sorry. But that's got to be the ultimate way of protest. Although I'm sure the Falcons would love for me to delete this channel since I don't do them a lot of favors when I talk about the dumb moves they make. But yeah, this would be one of the most dumb draft. I'd hate it more than the Penix pick, which at the time I was not a big fan of, and right now it's looking pretty good simply because Kirk Cousins was not that good at the end of 2024. But regardless, look at the wide receiver room. You're bringing back your 3 top guys. Is the need to replace Ray McCloud so mighty that you don't go defense? What's wrong with Ray McCloud? He put up 686 yards last year as a number 3 receiver in a passing offense that went up and down with Kirk Cousins and then over to a rookie QB. Mooney came up just shy of 1,000 yards. 1,200, a career high in receptions, yards, and touchdowns for London. No, I don't think anyone walking away from the Atlanta Falcons 2024 season thinks, I can't wait to really fucking fix that wide receiver 4 problem at 15th overall in the draft. Unless it's some generational receiver that you think is going to be the next Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. No. And newsflash, it won't be. I don't have a crystal ball, but this wide receiver class is not that good. There's probably going to be 2 guys that go in the first round. Neither one of those guys, McMillan or Burden from Arizona Mizzou, would go first round in last year's draft. They just wouldn't. That's how weak of a receiver class it is, that they are being bumped up to round 1 because someone's going to take a receiver, and that someone better not be Fontenot and the Falcons. I almost want to go full like Vontae Mack mode, where it's edge or corner no matter what at 15. If I have to go to Terry's house and get arrested for breaking and entering, but I write on a sticky note, edge or corner no matter what at 15, I'll do it. I'll serve my time, and I'll go through the rehabilitation process, and I'll have a felony or whatever. But please, Terry, I know you're watching. Edge or corner at 15. If Will Johnson falls to you, run to it. If he's taken before you, there's so many good edge options you can go with. I don't care what you do in free agency, by the way. You could go in free agency and sign 2 free agent edge rushers. You could go in free agency and sign Khalil Mack and trade for Trey Hendrickson. I'd still be happy with drafting an edge rusher. You know why? Because both those guys are on the wrong side of 30 and are not going to be this team's leading rusher or pass rusher for the next 5, 6, 7 years. But the guy at 15 may very well. So when you picked Penix for the future, that same logic should apply to 15, even if you make a move at edge in free agency like you did with Kirk Cousins. So please, edge or corner at 15. I beg of you. Before we sign off, what year did you become a Falcons fan? Let me know in the comments section. It's always fun to see who the oldest fan or oldest fans are of the bunch. So scroll on down, type the year, whether you're just born a Falcons fan, from Atlanta. Maybe you hopped aboard when Matt Ryan went there, something like that. I want to hear from you, though, when you became a Falcons fan. That's going to do it for us, again, on today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and I'll be sure to see everyone tomorrow.